Welcome to Language Swap, everyone, a fun way to learn English. We are so excited to have you join us today.
3 years ago, I lost everything I'd built in a city I thought I'd live in forever. Job gone, apartment gone. The version of myself I'd spent years constructing, gone.
And what did you do?
I moved back in with my parents at 31 years old with 2 suitcases, and genuinely no idea what came next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sally. Today we're talking about starting over, what it actually feels like, what nobody tells you about it, and why the people who do it are usually the ones who end up somewhere they never expected.
Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Alex. This one's level B1 to B2. If you've ever had to begin again, a new country, a new job, a new life after something fell apart, this one is genuinely for you.
And if you're a little below that level, stay with us. The story alone is worth following.
Quick thing, if you like the podcast, please subscribe and leave us a like. It really helps us grow.
Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so you opened with the 2 suitcases. Tell me what that was actually like, day one.
Day one was completely surreal. I remember sitting in my old childhood bedroom thinking, I'm an adult. I have been an adult for over a decade, and I'm sleeping in a room with a poster from when I was 14 still on the wall.
The poster was still there.
The poster was still there, and there was something about that detail that made the whole thing feel both humiliating and weirdly funny at the same time.
Why funny, though? What made it funny?
Because it was so far from what I'd imagined my 30s would look like. Like the gap between what I thought my life would be at that point and what it actually was, it was so large it almost became absurd.
I think that gap between the life you planned and the life you're actually in is where most of the pain of starting over lives.
Completely. And here's the thing, nobody says about that gap. It doesn't get better by closing it faster. It gets better by letting go of the original plan.
Which is much harder than it sounds.
So much harder because the plan isn't just a plan. It's your identity. It's the version of yourself you've been building and introducing to people for years, and suddenly that version doesn't match reality anymore.
When did you start to feel like things were shifting?
Not for a while. Honestly, the first month or two were just getting through each day. Not in a dramatic way, just in a flat gray, one foot in front of the other kind of way.
That's such an honest description. I think people imagine starting over as either a dramatic rock bottom or a sudden inspirational moment, but a lot of it is just gray.
Mostly gray. Yeah. And the gray is actually the hardest part because nothing's happening. You're not in crisis anymore, but you're also not okay. You're just waiting for something to become clearer.
So what eventually started to get clearer?
Something small, actually. I started doing something I hadn't done in years, just for myself, with no professional reason attached to it. Something I genuinely loved before I'd gotten so focused on building a career.
What was the thing you went back to?
Writing not for work, not for an audience, just writing things down because I needed to put somewhere what was in my head.
And that shifted something for you.
Very slowly, not in a, and then everything changed way, more like I started having a reason to get up that had nothing to do with what I'd lost, and that was new.
I think that's actually the part of starting over that people miss when they watch it from outside. They see the before and the after. They miss the part where someone quietly finds one small thing that belongs entirely to them.
And it's not impressive from the outside. It looks like nothing. Someone writing in a notebook in their parents' kitchen at 7 a.m. is not a comeback story. But it was mine.
I want to bring in something here because I think it connects directly to why starting over is so hard, specifically for people who've moved to a new country or started a new life in a second language.
Yeah, go ahead, because I think there's something really specific there.
When you start over in a new country, you lose the version of yourself that existed in your first language, and that's a particular kind of loss that doesn't have a great name.
What do you mean by that?
In your first language, you have history. You have years of being someone specific, funny, serious, quick with words, whatever it is. You have the shorthand, the references, the ability to express yourself fully and immediately. When you move to a new language, that version of you doesn't exist yet in the new language, and you have to rebuild it from scratch.
So it's not just a practical challenge, it's an identity challenge.
A deep one. And I think a lot of people who've moved countries and are learning English feel a version of what you felt in that childhood bedroom, a gap between who they know themselves to be and who they're currently able to express themselves as.
And that gap is uncomfortable in a way that's hard to explain to people who haven't felt it.
You can be articulate, funny, intelligent, creative in your first language and feel like a completely different, much simpler version of yourself in the new one. And it's not because you've become less, it's because the language hasn't caught up to who you actually are yet.
Yet that word is important.
Hugely important, because the gap closes, slowly, the same way everything else in starting over closes, not all at once, not dramatically, but in small, almost invisible shifts over time.
I want to go back to something you said, that people who start over end up somewhere they never expected. Because I think that's true in a specific way that's worth saying clearly.
Yeah, what's your take on it?
I didn't end up where I was going when I had the two suitcases. Not even close. I ended up somewhere different, and I think I would have hated the place I was originally going. I just didn't know that yet.
Because the original plan was built by a version of you who didn't know what you know now.
Exactly. The plan was built by someone who hadn't lost anything yet, and losing things, as brutal as it is, changes your calibration. What matters to you shifts. What you are willing to trade away changes. And the new direction that comes out of that recalibration is usually more honest than the original one.
I think that's the most important thing we'll say today, actually. Starting over is not just a reset, it's a recalibration. You're not going back to zero, you're moving to a different point on the map with everything you've learned.
And the people who struggle most with starting over are usually the ones who treat it as a reset, as if the goal is to recreate what they had before, just somewhere new.
Whereas the people who eventually find something real are the ones who ask a different question. Not how do I get back to where I was, but given everything that's happened, where do I actually want to go?
That's such a harder question to sit with.
It's the hardest question because the answer might be completely different from everything you planned, and that's terrifying when you're already in the uncertain middle of things.
But it's also the question that eventually leads somewhere true.
Every time I think, not fast, not dramatically, but eventually, yes.
I want to ask you something actually because I've been listening to you talk about this and I realize I've been framing starting over as something that happens to you like an event.
And it's not just an event.
So what actually is it then if not an event?
It's more like a season, and seasons don't end because you decide they should. They end when they're done.
That's a really different way to hold it.
I think the people who suffer most in starting over are the ones fighting the season, like trying to skip winter by, wanting really hard for it to be spring.
Whereas the people who come out the other side with something real
Are the ones who figure out how to live in winter? Not enjoy it necessarily, just exist in it without spending all their energy resisting it.
what does that actually look like? Because exist in winter sounds poetic, but I want to know what it looks like at 7 a.m.
It looks like very small things, genuinely very small, getting outside once a day, even when you don't want to. Talking to one person who knew you before, doing one thing that isn't about fixing the situation.
The writing in your parents' kitchen.
Exactly that. Not because it was going to lead anywhere, just because it was mine and it was real and it had nothing to do with the gap between where I was and where I thought I should be.
I want to go back to the language thing one more time because I think there's something really practical in there for people learning English specifically.
What's on your mind? Go for it.
When someone is starting over in a new language, rebuilding their identity there, what's the equivalent of the writing at 7 a.m.? Like, what's the thing that belongs entirely to them in the new language?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think it's finding the first thing you do in English that has nothing to do with being correct.
Say more about that? What do you mean by theirs?
Learning a language is so often about performance. You're trying to be understood, trying not to make mistakes, trying to prove you belong, and all of that is exhausting. But there's a moment for most learners where they find something in the new language that's just fun or interesting.
Like watching a show in English just because you love the show?
Exactly. Or a podcast you listen to because you actually care about the topic, not because it's for English practice. Or a word you learned that you just love the sound of and use every chance you get.
And that thing, whatever it is the crack of light.
It's where the identity in the new language starts to take shape. Not in the grammar exercises, in the thing that belongs to you.
Word tour time, first word, surreal.
Surreal, when something feels strange and dreamlike, almost unreal, even though it's actually happening.
In today's episode, we talked about day one of starting over feeling completely surreal, like being in a scene that couldn't possibly be your actual life.
You could say the whole first week felt surreal, like I was watching it happen to someone else.
Or there's a surreal quality to starting over. It's real, but your brain keeps refusing to accept it.
Next word for today, identity.
Identity, who you are, the version of yourself you've built and carry into the world. The thing starting over can make you question completely.
In today's episode, we talked about how the plan isn't just a plan, it's your identity. And losing the plan means losing, at least temporarily, a version of who you thought you were.
You could say the hardest part wasn't starting over practically. It was figuring out who I was without the version of myself I'd built.
Or, when you move to a new language, your identity has to be rebuilt there too, and that takes time.
Next word, a big one, recalibration.
Recalibration, adjusting to a new reality, resetting your sense of what matters and what you're aiming for.
In today's episode, we said starting over isn't a reset to zero. It's a recalibration. You move to a different point on the map carrying everything you've learned.
You could say after everything fell apart, I went through a long, slow recalibration of what I actually wanted.
Or the recalibration was uncomfortable, but what came out of it was more honest than the original plan.
Next word, this one's useful, articulate.
Articulate, able to express yourself clearly and effectively, especially with words.
In today's episode, we talked about how you can be fully articulate in your first language and feel like a much simpler version of yourself in a new one. Not because you've become less, but because the language hasn't caught up yet.
You could say, I'm articulate in Spanish, but I'm still finding my voice in English.
Being articulate in a new language takes time. It's not about intelligence. It's about the language catching up to who you actually are.
Last word for today, inevitable.
Inevitable, certain to happen, unable to be avoided or stopped.
In today's episode, we talked about the slow, almost invisible closing of gaps, the way progress in starting over is inevitable, even when it's not visible yet.
You could say the progress felt invisible for a long time, but looking back, it was inevitable.
Or the gap closes. Maybe not fast, maybe not how you expected, but it's inevitable.
So today, surreal, identity, recalibration, articulate, and inevitable.
Okay? Say it better time, let's go.
First sentence, I had to start everything again from zero.
More precise. I had to start over, which meant letting go of the version of myself I'd built and recalibrating towards something I didn't fully know yet.
Next, it was hard to move to a new country.
Sharper version, moving to a new country, meant rebuilding my identity in a new language, which is a surreal kind of starting over that doesn't have a great name.
Next, I feel less intelligent when I speak English.
The real version, I'm fully articulate in my first language, but I'm still becoming that person in English. The gap will close. It just takes time.
Next, things got better eventually.
Make it specific. The recalibration was slow and mostly invisible, but what eventually came out of it was more honest than what I'd had before.
Last one, I don't know what to do next.
More useful version, the most important shift was from how do I get back to where I was to, given everything that's happened, where do I actually want to go?
And that's the question worth sitting with this week.
Not how do I rebuild what I had, but what does someone with everything I've learned now actually want to build next?
Tell us in the comments, what's one thing you've started over on? And what did you find on the other side that you didn't expect? If today's episode made starting over feel a little less like failure and a little more like recalibration, share it with someone who needs to hear that right now.
And if you're in the middle of a winter right now, whatever yours looks like, find the one small thing that belongs entirely to you. The writing at 7 a.m., the show you watch just because you love it. The word you love the sound of.
It doesn't have to lead anywhere yet. It just has to be yours.
That's enough. That's actually enough. And thanks so much for listening, everyone.
See you in the next one.